Good morning and thank you for joining us. I'm Alero Edu and this is Sunrise.
I'm Ayomakide. Good morning. Hope your weekend has started well. Oh, I've had my cup of cocoa this morning. Yes.
Ayo, I'm not reacting to that this morning. I promise. I am not reacting to that. Because I had a rough time getting here this morning. So I've had neither cocoa nor cocoa.
Oh, well, that's not the reaction. So let's just move on.
The traffic out there. Oh, my word. Well, you said you spoke to them, the road safety people at the site.
I was, you know what they call culture shock? I drove out of the estate. For God's sake, my trip here on a good day, 15 minutes
tops.
Lackadaisical driving, 20 minutes stops. So I leave home in good enough time in case of any, incasity.
Incasity, that kind of incasity.
So I just got out of the estate. I'm like, wait a minute, what's this? I looked on the expressway, no traffic. Okay, something is amiss. So I just joined, and of course, I was just
crawling along.
Thankfully, it was a little more than snail speed, and it was surprising. So I just kept on. What I observed was that all 3 lanes on the major highway and the service lane, CMD road, they all merged into just one slow lane. So,
wow.
When I crawled to the end of it, of course, I saw what was happening on the bridge.
Yeah.
Well, of course, naturally, I said to myself, I saw road safety guys there, I saw LASPA, I saw policemen. I said, I needed to find out exactly what's going on. So I got down, spoke with the road safety fellows. What's happening? Said it started out sometime in the region of 4:30 in the morning, and that there must have been a broken down vehicle. That about 5 or 6 others ran into in the middle of the night.
Oh dear.
One of them happened to be a diesel bearing tanker. That's what caused the fire.
Thank God it was diesel and not petrol.
And not petrol. So I was like, okay, so what kinds of vehicles? All big trucks. The smallest of them was a 6-wheeler.
Yeah, great.
In the middle of the night.
6 of them.
And so that is what happened. I just began to ask a lot of questions on my mind. Was it overspeeding? I asked the guys, they said it must have been.
Don't forget that most of these trucks and lorries don't have any kind of illumination in their rear.
Well, certainly.
Well, I will get done in for having a broken tail light, but these trucks don't have anything at all, and they manage to get roadworthiness passes.
Both for daytime and nighttime driving. And now, see what it's cost. God forbid that there is an emergency, a woman going to a hospital to give birth or something this morning.
She'll give birth in the traffic.
It was very, very bad. It was very, very bad. And
so if you're going out of Lagos, you'd best look for other routes of getting out of Lagos, because Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is a no-go area right now. But we're glad to say that law enforcement is there and they're doing what they can to make sure that the road is passable in the shortest possible time.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about fuel, you saw that one.
Oh, yes, that one. Oh, God. I mean, it's amazing. So we're feeding Cameroon, we're feeding Benin Republic, and God knows where else we're feeding. And by feeding, I mean where else our fuel is going. Now, didn't you guys always wonder how come our fuel consumption in Lagos went from 33 million liters a day to about 60 million? The cars in Lagos suddenly doubled?
You remember that, I think it was at the time that the federal government shut the borders. Information went out. I think it wasn't from NNPC or PPPRA or some agency in the Department of Petroleum Resources, saying that when the borders were closed, our fuel consumption reduced dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wait a minute.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Borders were shut. Petrol consumption reduced. What's happening here?
People stopped going out because the borders were shut. Or what? I mean, what else could it have been?
Exactly what you saw.
Because most of our fuel is going out of Nigeria. It's been smuggled out. I mean, people in Cameroon say they haven't entered a filling station in 6-7 years. Where are they getting the fuel from? Fuel that is smuggled in from Nigeria and is selling about half the price of the cost of fuel in their country.
Mm-hmm. And if it's expensive in the country, it's just it's even still not at the official price in their country. Still not at the official price.
And they say it is common knowledge.
And it's common
Everyone knows. It's being sold openly.
And government officials...
Oh, they're dispensing it like they're dispensing ororo in bottles, you know?
And, according to the report, which wasn't done by a Nigerian station, by the way, was the report says that state officials...
Look the other way.
And according to...
I just did.
Oh, I didn't notice.
I just looked the other way.
Well, no, you're only looking at the other screen. According to official reports, they said that the value of the smuggled commodity from Nigeria, something in the region of $5 million on a regular. So the question then is, who are the perpetrators? Who are the merchants? Who are the culprits? It goes back to a question that I've asked over and over again. What's the national ethos that will make anyone say, all for Nigeria first and foremost?
Big question.
It's just the thing that, because for me, it sounds unpatriotic.
Well, Nigeria has got to do something for its people, for them to feel what you're talking about. But most Nigerians feel that I don't get nothing. I got to provide my own power, provide my own water. My children don't get scholarship. When I'm ill, I can't even get a decent hospital to go to. And when I do get to the hospital, where there are hardly any means for the doctors to do their jobs like they should, I have to pay for it. I'm not even sure about the drugs I'm being given, whether they're fake or not. And the list goes on. And you want Nigerians to be patriotic? Yes, it is our country and it's the only one we have. But what has your country done for you?
Well, it doesn't also help that we don't recite the national anthem every day, and we don't recite the national pledge every day.
Even when we did. What, did it count for much?
These are big questions. Would anyone watching us right now have the same opportunity and not take it? What would it cost you? It is costing the nation, no doubt about it. But
a lot.
That's where we are.
There it is. Oh, yeah, and in the course of the week as well, you heard about the professor who was jailed, I think, for 2 or 3 years for election malpractice. Election malpractice.
Jailed for 3 years. The question is, how was that vulnerability possible in a system that is heavily regulated and seriously guided by the law? Does it question the recruitment process for electoral commissioners?
Come on.
Just asking. Just asking.
I am the reporting officer. So I've got the results in front of me. I can make or mar by a stroke of my pen.
Which goes back to the national ethos that we talked about.
Thank you. Well, you need to put Nigeria first, is what we're saying, right?
Yes, that's what we're saying, but it would seem like people are more interested in putting themselves first.
And as long as this system is in place, people are going to put themselves first because life is so hard. Life is so hard. The Nigerian has to get by somehow. How can any human being get by on 30,000 naira a month?
How much food can it put? How much food can you put in the menu? Oh, menu.
Menu. Okay.
Menu.
Of course. Focus this morning will begin from vaccination distribution or vaccine distribution.
Well, vaccination is also a good word.
Well,
it's just that we have to throw out the distribution there. Rain is coming.
Rain has come.
Oh, rain has. Well, no, it's still. The Hydrological Society is saying, think about it. We're close to peaking. We're close to peaking. Question you don't want to ask is, how soon? More conversation on that. Okay,
the U.S. Government Exchanges Alumni Association Women Achievers 2021. That's a rather long title, but if you stay with us, you'll get to know what that is all about.
An instructive word right there, women. The first word, the second line, women. And she's smiling.
Yes.
Women achievers, by the way, just to underscore it. And Artist of the Week will be the fourth one for today. For now, who knows? You know, this is sunrise. Anything can happen. Of course, I mean, when you have a menu, you can decide to add a thing or two or take out a thing or two.
Yeah, and the Artist of the Week is a she. She is a she.
See?
Women again.
Achievers.
So that's what we're going to be talking about this morning. Get your cocoa or your cocoa, as the case may be, and be a part of today's program by joining us on the various handles that will be shown on your screen shortly. See you in just a moment. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Now let's get the show started. The distribution of the AstraZeneca vaccines continues across states in Nigeria. While frontline workers have been prioritized in the first phase, some other citizens have also joined in receiving the jabs. And I am glad to say that what we noticed in the course of the week is that some vaccine skeptics are beginning to come round because healthcare centers are now inundated with people. And sometimes they have to actually book and come a day or two after.
Which was the arrangement that the government put in place in the first place.
Well, thank God people are going out to take the jabs. But are they going out enough? We have with us this morning Dr. Basi Oposen, who's Director, Disease Control and Immunization, NPHCDA, and he joins us from our studio in Abuja. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Alero. Good morning, Nigerians.
Thank you for joining us. Now,
Thank you.
I was just speaking my layman's view, you know, about people coming out to take the vaccine. What have you observed regarding people coming out for the jabs?
Okay, just permit me first to sincerely appreciate His Excellency the President for making this happen. The Vice, the Minister of Health, the PTF, the Executive Director of the agency, Dr. Faisal, for making this happen. The vaccine is very scarce, and they made every effort for this to happen. Initially, before the arrival of the vaccine, you bear me witness, there were a lot of negative stories on the media, the internet, every kind of story was going along and around the country that once the vaccine comes, Nigeria, when you take, you fall and die. But thank God that the government made this happen, the vaccine is available, and the vaccination has actually started. And like you have asked, I think what we are seeing happening now is amazing. The president made it an example. Personally, he took the vaccine. the vice presidents, the ministers, the PTF members, the governors, our governors are all out there taking the vaccine cheerfully and happily. And we've not seen anything happen like people were speculating. To further confirm to us that these vaccines are safe, this is one of the things that our Nigerians have seen our leaders coming out to be good examples. And that is why even those that were not prioritized for this phase are trooping and rushing to the facilities to get the jab. We have even heard of instances where people try to bribe to get the health workers to pay them to vaccinate them. It's exciting. We are happy that this is happening and Nigerians are surrendering to be vaccinated. This will be of advantage to the country because it will contribute to the country having the herd immunity on time. Thank you. Over.
Yeah, Doctor, have you heard tell of any persons who've had side effects? And if you have, what kind of side effects were they?
Okay, I put it this way. As good as fish is, as good as milk is, and so many other things, there are some people, if they take those things, the fish, the milk, they can't sleep, they'll have problems. As individuals, we take the vaccine, they are, like you put it, people that will have majorly mild incidences, and a few might have instances that could be scary. And for those mild instances, it ranges from things like pains at the site of the vaccination. Some people will have headache after a few hours after, some might have fever, some feel tired, and the rest of them. And then only a few instances where you hear, oh, they said the person fainted and things like that. And so what we've seen majorly with the vaccinations so far, as at yesterday evening on the electronic platform, the server we are using to capture Nigerians that have been vaccinated, we have vaccinated about 374,585 Nigerians so far, those that have been captured. There are a few others that have been registered, and the various health centers are synchronizing their data on the server. So we have more than that. So what we've seen from this group of Nigerians that have been vaccinated so far is just those mild complaints of the pains at the site, the fever, and so on, which subside after a few hours.
Okay, so, Dr. Okwose, I beg your pardon. We need to go on a short break now and come back and continue this conversation with you. Welcome back. Now, Dr. Okwose, you were talking to us about reactions or allergies from those who have taken the jabs.
Yes, what I was saying was that for now, we are hearing more of just those mild complaints being reported, like some will talk about the pains around the site, which is common for vaccination that are injections, and some complain of tiredness, some complain of headache, some mild fever, and there are a few instances where we've heard, yes, the people tried for out of fear after the injection, when they were put on the bed and they came back a few hours after, and there's not been any serious issue linked to the vaccination received so far. And like I mentioned, as at what we have on the portal around 6 p.m. yesterday, 374,585 Nigerians have been officially vaccinated on the portal. We have many more that have been vaccinated, and the information is being synchronized on the portal, the server. And so we've not had anything that is negative to scare Nigerians from taking the vaccination, as the case was, and as some people are still rumoring around saying, oh, the vaccine is not safe. I want to reassure Nigerians, these vaccines are safe. Personally, I have taken it, and nothing has happened. My chief executive, our minister, the president, the vice president, PTF members, our ministers, our governors have shown good examples, just to reassure Nigerians that these vaccines are safe. And I know there's been a lot of rumors out there that the AstraZeneca is not safe. just on the 25th of this March, the phase 3 trial that was done in US, Peru, and Chile was out again. It's shown that 79% of people are protected against COVID-19 when they take AstraZeneca vaccine. And this trial was carried out on 32,449 persons. And it also showed that out of this figure that was on the trial, 60% of them even had other comorbid conditions, but none of them was hospitalized and none of them also died throughout the pandemic so far, which is very good statistics. In UK, where it is the University of Oxford that this vaccine is also being produced, the study also done in UK 3 months after vaccination shows 82% reduction in hospitalization, which is enough to also reassure us. And we've had over 102 countries of the world where their ministries of health have done the necessary investigation and confirmed that these vaccines are safe. So just to reassure Nigerians that these vaccines are safe and will help us to stamp out this pandemic in this country. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Opozem. We'll still take you up on a number of other things. By the way, just so you know, the number one citizen of this program has also taken the vaccine, so I'm the first man of the program. We'll get into all of that a little more. But let me bring in Dr. Ado Mohammed, who is the Global Director, D8 Health and Social Protection Program. Thanks for joining us this morning. Well, you clearly also heard the global outcry about the AstraZeneca vaccine. Of course, there have been, can I say, retractions, and some of the countries have already decided, and some have even returned to taking the vaccines, all over again. What other things are people, do people need to be aware of, or do people need to know to assure them that indeed the vaccines are safe globally?
So can you say it over again, because I've missed?
Well, yes, Dr. Mohammed, I'm just asking, I mean, you are not unaware of the outcry, the global outcry about the AstraZeneca vaccine. Some of those countries have returned to taking them. So I just want you to give an assurance to people about what are those things that they need to know about the vaccines to convince them that indeed it is as safe as it's been touted all over the place.
First, let me say good morning, Nigerians, and then let me also appreciate the COVAX. Appreciate COVAX for supporting Nigeria with about 4 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine. For every vaccination, it comes with some risk, but that risk can be mild, it can be moderate, and it could be severe. So far,
Dr. Mohammed, if you can hear me, if you could just mute. Oh, yeah, I guess we lost the connection for now. But Dr. Koza, let me ask you, still on this issue of vaccines, well, maybe this is on the side of something. Over the week, we heard that Nigeria has also developed some, it was a PTF chairman that was making the announcement that Nigeria has also developed some local vaccines and gone into some levels of trials. What can you tell us about that one, very quickly?
Yes, that is also on at the labs in Lagos. And like I mentioned earlier, making reference to AstraZeneca vaccine, where the latest stage 3 trial and what it has shown, the vaccine has to pass through stages of trials, the 5 major stages. And so the vaccines that are being produced in Nigeria are passing through those stages of the trial, and is receiving all the support that it needs from the government of Nigeria. And like you rightly said, this year the government has voted some funds to support those projects. We have Nigerians that can do it. Even the Pfizer vaccines we are talking about, the three main developers and inventors in Nigeria is part of them. And so we have Nigerians in this country who have the brain and they are doing what they are doing. And like you said, we are currently having the support of the government for this to happen. They will only come to use for the public when it had passed through all the clinical stages, certified by our own NAFDAC, certified by WHO, and then before it will be used on human beings. So those are the stages. It must pass through those stages. And like the other question you asked, how can we reassure Nigerians that these vaccines are safe to be used? The AstraZeneca that is available already in the market. And like I mentioned a few minutes ago, the UK government, the EMA, European Medicine Agency, did the studies and they came up with 82% hospitalization rates improvement. The report that came out from the US on the 25th of this March has also come up with the 79% safety prevention against COVID-19, as I mentioned. And I told you 60% of these persons that were on this trial, they were about 32,449. 60% of them had other conditions. At the end of it, none of them died, and none of them was hospitalized for COVID-19 vaccine, which shows a good rate. And you bear with us witness, France, Germany already initially has said they will not they stop the vaccination. But seeing the latest results that are coming out, they have returned to the vaccination, and as we are talking, they are also taking the vaccine. And their return to the vaccination program is again contributing a problem to the other countries that these companies have already promised to release the vaccine to, and which is contributing to the current shortfall that we are having globally. So we want to reassure Nigerians, trials that have been done show the vaccines are safe. They have also seen our leaders and everybody in position of authority, our health workers are taking these vaccines. And all those rumors that we're flying around, we are not seeing them happening. So please, Nigerians, be encouraged to take the vaccines. Over.
Okay. Well, Dr. Mohammed, again, thanks for joining us this morning. No doubt, the vaccine hesitancy thing is nothing new to you. I mean, it's something that comes with the territory, as they say. Taking it on board, I mean, both on a global level, on a continental level, and even on a national level, what are the reactions that you have seen, and how should we be managing them? How have we managed them? What's your assessment of our management so far? And what should we do to convince Nigerians even more?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. And let me also appreciate Channel Television for working on ensuring that we enhance the optics of COVID-19 vaccine. The vaccine hesitancy and then vaccine conspiracy theory is not new at the global level, and it's also not new in Nigeria. First, let me say that every vaccine comes with its own risk, and those risks can be minimal, it can be moderate, it could be severe. But in case of AstraZeneca vaccine, that the vaccine is safe. It came with of course, initially there's some concern about cloaking, about bleeding, and then about people reacting to the vaccine, so, but the scientific world, has proven that there is no association between the blood clotting, the bleeding, with the vaccine itself. So in general, I want to say AstraZeneca vaccine is safe, and encourage people to take it up and then go to the nearest vaccine to get themselves immunized. At the national level, of course, when it comes to conspiracy theory in respect of vaccine, we are used to it. I've been opportune to be part of the Nigerian immunization program from when it started around 1998, 1999. And we've seen it, how it played out with polio vaccine. We also have seen how it played out with some of the routine immunization vaccine. And I think what we need to do is that we should take advantage of the infrastructure we've established to debunk the polio conspiracy theory, which is still available and which was used to ensure that Nigerians uptake polio vaccine, and which resulted in the eradication of polio in Nigeria. And what is that structure? That structure refers to the community structure which we establish that speaks to traditional institutions, that speaks to religious leaders, that speaks to key influencers within every community. We need to bring them on board to make people realize the fact that COVID-19 vaccine is safe. COVID-19 vaccine is the only way that we can, develop population immunity, which in the scientific world is called herd immunity, so that at the end of the day we can resume some certain semblance of normality, And
Dr. Mohammed, on that, perhaps there's a need to educate people a little more on why that is necessary, because one of the things that fed this vaccine hesitancy until now is that people say, look, what difference does it make? If I take the vaccine, I'm still susceptible to the virus. If I take the vaccine, I still have to wear my masks and use all the non-pharmaceutical initiatives that have been suggested. If I take the vaccine, I can still, and I have the virus, I can still communicate it to other people. It's still communicable from me to other people. So what does the vaccine do, and why is it necessary for everyone to take it when they still have to use the NPIs?
Yes, I think we need to understand the fact that taking the vaccine comes with a lot of advantage. And what are those advantages? First, if a vaccinated individual comes across somebody who's infected and gets infected, it's not likely that that person will get a severe COVID infection. It's also not likely that that person will get symptoms that will lead into taking him to the hospital. It's also not likely that that person may die from COVID-19 infection. That is one advantage. Secondly, taking the vaccination will also ensure that it reduces the transmissibility, from person to the person. Number three, taking the vaccine will also allow the system to build what is known as population immunity, so that we'll be able to achieve at least 70 to 80% population, and that will confer immunity on others that have not taken the vaccine. So it comes with a lot of advantage, and at the end of the day, if we are able to achieve 80%, 70 to 80% immunity for the population, then at least we will have resumed some semblance of normality. But this also does not mean that if one is immunized, we should lower our guard. We should still continue with the pharmaceutical guidelines in terms of washing hands, in terms of using face mask, in terms of keeping some safe distances until and when we're able to achieve population immunity. The reason why we encourage people to keep on adhering.
Okay. I'm sure we'll still get him back.
Let's go to Dr. Kosa. Dr. Kosa,
if I can just
heard that a certain telecoms company...
So, I think he wants to add a word or two to what we
said. All right, Doc.
I want to add, for the advantage of taking the vaccines is the fact that generally all vaccines help the individual produce antibodies that when they now are facing the real life situation of the disease, and they are protected against it, they are prevented against it. For the COVID being specific to COVID now, and as I mentioned in the studies that have been done on AstraZeneca, it shows that 79% of individuals that take the vaccine are prevented from coming down with the disease. And it further shows that for those that have taken it, yes, a few percentage of them, the other remaining 21%, came down with it, but they were never hospitalized and none of them died. So you see, when you take the vaccine, you are protected against coming down with the disease, and even if for any reason the few percentages that will come down with it, it becomes mild and not serious. And this can be likened to what we see in measles vaccination, for instance, in children. If 100 children are given measles vaccine, 85% of them will never come back with measles. 15% stand a chance of coming down with measles in the future, but when they come down with the measles, it will be mild, unlike other children that will become severe. And if you give those children a second chance of the vaccination, 95% of them, 95 out of the 100, will never come down with it again. So that is the advantage of taking the vaccines. It prevents us from coming down with the disease, and at the same time, even if, for instance, the person is not fully protected, even if he has the disease, it will be mild, not like seen in some other persons. And you asked the question also, why do we need to wear the face masks? Yes, we are moving around.
On that, Dr. Oposen, just a moment. On that, why do we need to still continue using the MPIs when, even after taking the vaccines? You answer that question when we return from this break. Please stay with us. All right, Dr. Oposen, thanks for staying with us, everyone. So you want to address that question. Please go ahead.
Okay. By still using the face masks and observing other IPC skills, we are doing ourselves and our loved ones good. Once an individual sneezes, coughs, etc., viruses, bacteria, and the rest microorganisms are released into the airspace, and the person close to you stands the risk of inhaling them and becoming sick. And likewise, you stand the chance of inhaling from others and getting sick. When that happens, it's not only COVID that is being released. So if you are, for you as an individual, because you've taken the vaccine, you say you are not going to use face shield or face mask again, you can be in touch with somebody that is having COVID, get infected, but because you've taken the vaccine, remember we said 79% of them for the AstraZeneca that we're using will not manifest with the COVID disease. Now, those kind of people now become asymptomatic. They will inhale from others and begin to spread because they are not covering, they are using their face shield or masks. So that's why they now become, even though themselves are protected, they become a risk to others. And that's why we advise we still use it. And also, we're protecting ourselves from other diseases we would have contacted from others when we use it. Thirdly, we become good examples to others. Because if somebody is watching you and is saying, oh, it's good to use the face mask, the rest, and then you are not a good example, you won't encourage others. And by everybody using, those who have not had the opportunity of taking the vaccine so far also become protected. So please, Nigerians, let's continue to use our face masks, face shields, and observe other IPC protocols because it helps every one of us to stay safe.
Okay, Doctor, staying with you, approximately 4 million doses came in via COVAX, and we hear that a certain telecoms company has donated 300,000 doses. We also hear tell that another company donated 1 million doses. But there are approximately 100 million people who require this vaccine. So how are we going to source for the balance? Are more corporate companies coming in to help us in this endeavor?
Okay, thank you for the question. Please permit me once again, because this is a very good question you've asked and very sensitive. Permit me once again to thank the government of the Nigeria under the leadership of our President Buhari, and the entire cabinet, the PTF, the Minister of Health, and the Executive Director, MPSA, Dr. Faisal. The areas the country plans to get vaccine and the support we've had from all these people we have had mentioned from one, the COVAX facility. from the COVAX facility, this is the headquarters, the secretariat is domiciled at Gavi, Global Alliance for Vaccine and Immunization. Gavi promises and has given a decision letter and approval to support the country and other eligible countries that benefit from Gavi to support the targeted population, like you've mentioned, with 20% of this population. They are going to give vaccine that will cover 20% of the population. So this is already being covered. This population is already being covered from the COVAX facility. It's from that facility the country received the 3.942 million of the 16 initial batch that we are expecting from the COVAX. In total, this will be receiving about 84 million doses from the COVAX facility, which will vaccinate 42 million Nigerians. That is the promise from an approval from the COVAX facility. That is one area. The second area that the government has also had approval to bring in vaccine to Nigerians, to vaccinate Nigerians, is the African Union Commission. So from the African Union Commission, already there is an approval for 41 million doses of these vaccines to be brought into Nigeria to vaccinate Nigerians. And then there are also efforts by the minister, the PTF, and the executive director, Dr. Faisal, to also they are having bilateral discussions with manufacturers in other companies like the Sputnik V to be able to balance up any deficit that we will observe to vaccinate the targeted Nigerians. So over the next 2 years, we are targeting vaccinating 112 million Nigerians who are vulnerable and are exposed and can have the COVID-19. So these people, from the support we have from the government, we definitely will have these vaccines to vaccinate Nigerians. It's just that this initial phase, because even those skeptics, the countries that were not accepting the vaccination before, they are now back to the drawing board. So there's a pressure, but the world is trying to expand the manufacturing to ensure that these vaccines are produced, and the government is making effort to ensure that all these commitments from the COVAX facility, the commitment from the AU, becomes reality so that Nigerians will be vaccinated. So those are the sources that the vaccines are likely to come in. And then speaking specifically also to the other area you raised, the telecommunication company, that was specifically MTN, they promised to give 1.5 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine to Nigeria. The one that came in on Monday was the first 300,000 that you have just mentioned, donation that has come from them. So we still have a balance of 1.2. And then the other donation that we received so far is that from the Indian High Commission, Indian government. It's not 1 million as mentioned, it's 100,000 doses that they've donated to the government of Nigeria. So those are the ones that have come in so far. Efforts are ongoing, the drive is on. The Executive Director, Dr. Faisal, the Minister of Health, the PTF are doing everything possible to ensure that these vaccines come in from the sources we are expecting them. Thank you, over.
Before we go to Dr. Ado, let me just ask you this question. Are these doses likely to arrive so that people can start taking their second doses in June as you predict?
Yes, for the second dose, what we've done, we have a technical working group that meets every day for about 3.5 months now. And this group is made up of governments and all our partners and all the stakeholders involved in the vaccination. And is chaired by the Executive Director, Dr. Faisal. We have looked at all the availability of the approvals and possibility, the expected arrivals. The first 3.942 million doses that have come in, we are using 50% of it to vaccinate the eligible priority groups. The other 50% will be standby so that whatever the case, even if in case of a delay, we have vaccines to reach out for the second dose of these Nigerians that have so far been vaccinated. And that is why the word out there to our health workers, the state, the leadership at the state level is, please stick to the priority groups that we are targeting for this round. Let's ensure that the frontline health workers and other support staff, both in the government and private clinics, are covered. let's ensure the frontline workers that are non-health, the specifications that have been given to the states, like the armed forces, the police, the military, the navy, the immigration, the road safety, and all those other arms of the government that have a day-to-day interactions with Nigerians have been prioritized. And then there are a few states with the doses we have received so far that have gone to the state, that a few of those doses that the analysis that have come out that have gone to those states, yes, might be a little over what we need for those frontline workers. Then those are the states that we have asked and requested that they prioritize the elderly, 50 years and above, that are at risk to give with excess. So the counseling generally is we are not giving more than 50% of what we have received, so that we have the dose standby to give the second dose once it is time. And once the other additional vaccines and deliveries are received as planned, we will expand the vaccination to other groups. Thank you. Over.
I was hoping to bring back Dr. Adu Mohammed, Global Director, DH Health and Social Protection Program, to help address a thing or two, especially from the global perspective, because we understand that there are a number of countries who, because of the scarcity of the vaccines all over the world, they have had to extend the time between which the second dose is to be given to their citizens. So, for instance, if the first first jab has been collected by one person, and another jab is to be collected in a number of weeks to follow, because of the scarcity of the vaccines, some of them are not able to, there's an extension. So Dr. Mohammed, if you can join us again, thanks for joining us. If you can speak to that. The scarcity of the vaccines all over the world is making some countries to make adjustments to the vaccine calendar. Do you see that kind of thing happening again, or how do we solve that problem? Because the risk, we understand, is if you take a first jab and you don't take a second jab as and when expected, it renders the first jab useless.
Let me start by saying that that is not correct. If you do not take a second jab, it does not render the first jab useless. Science has proven that by the time you take the first jab, you can stay for as long as 12 weeks before you take the second jab. Yes, I do know that yes, for AstraZeneca vaccine, it says 28 days. For Pfizer, it says 21 days. But with what is happening now, with the scarcity of vaccine itself, countries are adjusting the second jab. For example, in the UK now, the priority is to give the first jab to as many eligible and high-risk individuals as possible. And they are spacing the second jab for 12 weeks after the first jab. So I think for us in Nigeria, we can also look at that scenario to get as many people immunized as possible. Because with the first jab, you get some 60% protection, and that will also allow you to immunize some other people, So it's important that we look at the total number of vaccines we have. We look at the number of eligible Nigerians that need to be immunized. And then we also look at how effective it will be to just concentrate the few vaccines we have on few individuals, as against widening it to include as many individuals as possible. I think, considering the circumstances we are in now, we may have to prolong and extend the second jab beyond the 21 days for AstraZeneca vaccine. We can take it as long as 12 weeks so that we immunize as many people as possible on the next additional immunization. Having said that, let me just clarify, shed some more light on what the gentleman from the National Primary Care Development Agency has said, in respect of why people have to continue using the non-pharmaceutical methods even after receiving the first jab. So, in addition to what he has said, we also need to protect people that have not been immunized. Because getting immunized with the first jab does not confer 100% protection. It only provides certain percentage of protection. And because it provides some certain percentage of protection, you can still get infected, even after you receive the first jab. But it protects you from getting severe illness. It also minimizes the transmissibility of the virus. But in addition, I think we need to also understand that it provides, allows us an opportunity to develop population immunity, so that people that have not been immunized will be protected until and when we attain about 70% population immunity, 70% people are immunized and attain population immunity, so that will not confer immunity on others that have not been immunized. So in addition to what that gentleman said, the tech here is for us to know that it also allows the system to develop population immunity to protect others that have not been immunized. But we have to attain at least 70 to 80% coverage.
So Mohammed, staying with you, the concerns, one of the things that you have also expressed in time past is the global collaboration, especially collaboration among African countries in these terms. Well, clearly one of the things that a number of people will be wondering is, what if I get a date and I need to travel abroad before the date I'm supposed to take the vaccine? What happens? Because we understand that if you're making an international travel, you have to take the vaccine and have a proof that you've taken, show a proof that you've taken the vaccine. What if that happens?
The vaccine passports, vaccination passports that is being attacked will only come into effect if all countries agree. And as it is, just a few countries are talking about that. In fact, the WHO, has not really endorsed that yet, because it goes against fundamental human rights. Because people have a choice not to accept the vaccine. You'll be going against people fundamental human rights, to insist that people must be vaccinated before they travel. That goes against human rights, and that is the angle a number of organizations are coming from, But I think what is important is that instead of compelling people to take the vaccine with conditionalities, with conditions, I think we should make concerted effort to create demand for the vaccine. And in creating demand for vaccine, it allows people to voluntarily, on their own, go and get the jab. And I think that is the angle we are advocating, that we should create demand. And how do you create demand? You need to make people understand the benefits of getting the jab. You also need to make people understand that the benefit of getting the jab outweighs the risk of any side effects, And then you also need to understand that when people get the jab, it protects them, it protects their family. And also, it also opens up the economy and then allows people to come back to normality in terms of life and livelihoods. So that is the angle I think we should come from, instead of insisting that people must get the jab before they travel. So it shouldn't be a kind of it shouldn't be used as a tool of blackmail. We should create demand. We know that the benefits that comes with the vaccination outweighs the risk of side effects. So we need to just work with the appropriate community structure, work with the appropriate advocacy platform to ensure that we create demand for this vaccine so that people get immunized.
But airlines are also talking about no vaccine passport, no flight. So you can't enter the aeroplanes except you show them a vaccine passport. And Qantas seems to be leading the charge because they become operational. I think theirs becomes, it's effective from April. Suppose other airlines jump on board and say you cannot fly through them except you have a vaccine passport.
So that will not depend on the individual. I think it's important because if airline makes it a condition, I'm sure that will have been they will have consulted the countries, the respective countries that they're traveling to. So if that is the condition, then people will be compelled, because if you want to travel Of course, every country wants to protect itself. Every country wants to protect itself. We can see how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected livelihoods. It has affected life. It has also, affected economy. So no country having, controlled the virus within its territory will want to be affected. So it all depends on the countries. While some countries might insist that before anybody comes into their shore, that person must be immunized. Some other countries might not do that. So it depends on, individual country. But as it is, there is what is known as reciprocal diplomacy. If a country A insists that citizens of country B should get the jab, get the passport before coming into the country, then country A also has the right to insist that, look, if that is the condition we're giving, then
just a quick one. Are you seeing, because you touched on the human rights infringement here, are you seeing human rights litigations as a result of this?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Can you say it again? I missed the last part.
I said, do you see a possibility of people, putting in human rights abuse cases all over the world as a result of this?
Definitely. I see that happening. I see that happening because you cannot, I'm a strong advocate of innovation. I'm a very strong advocate of innovation. And for me, I will encourage as many people to get immunized. But, it also has the human rights dimension. My own approach to immunization is to create demand.
Okay. All right.
Not compare.
Just a quick one. Yes, thank you. We have to go in a bit. But Dr. Oposen, does Nigeria have that position saying you don't take the vaccines, you don't come into the country?
Please, let me add to some of the sensitive issues raised here. The government of Nigeria has made provision in the vaccination program for people who are vaccinated to be scanned at the airport by the airline. That is why the card issued to Nigerians has a QR code on it. The QR code was developed by the Minting and Printing Company of Nigeria. There is a QR code on the card that once you are successfully vaccinated, is scanned and saved. At the airport, if it is scanned, it will show you've been vaccinated. It will show the vaccines you took. It will show the date you took the vaccine, your status of vaccination. That provision has already been made for all Nigerians. We mentioned earlier 374,585 Nigerians were automatically registered on the server that has QR code. There are about 580 something that have been vaccinated, and the synchronization of the code is ongoing. So just want Nigerians to know that that provision has been made. And please, when you go to the health facility for your vaccination, insist the health workers capture your data properly, scan the QR code so that you will not be embarrassed at the airport. The provisions are there. And the vaccination, of course, we plead with Nigerians to go out to receive the vaccination. And on the other issue that you raised earlier, is it because of scarcity that the extension
I'm sorry to
is
cut
given
you short,
from
but
21?
we've run completely out of time and we have to go now. Thank you very much. Dr. Basio Oposen, Director, Disease Control and Immunization, MPHCDA. We also had Dr. Ado Mohammed, Global Director, D8 Health and Social Protection Program, who joined us via telephone. Thank you very much, doctors, for coming to enlighten us this morning on the vaccine distribution. Sunrise will be right back with another interesting conversation. Do stay with us.
In broadcasting, when ever the song
amongst the dignitaries
here
include the former
Send Down the Rain is played, it's almost certain it will rain that day.
Well, I'm sure nobody played that song yesterday.
You can't be sure.
Well, there's so many stations.
Exactly.
Now. Yeah.
Lagos alone has about 40 radio stations, and you can imagine how many we have in every part of the country. So, and they stream online now, so you never can tell. So if you heard The sky looks misty and cloudy. Almost certain.
It will look misty and cloudy.
It's going to rain. And then add to that what that lady sang in the song. Talk about rain. Yes, not rain water. It's about rain. Anyway, talking about rain. During the week, the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, NISA, warned that Nigeria is inching closer to a peak of the rainy season and is urging states, local governments, and you to embark on precautionary measures to prevent cases of flooding. So, as the rainy season approaches, the peak of the rainy season approaches, because people are still wondering, are we in the rainy season already?
Looks like it.
Well, we are.
Okay, all right. I stand corrected.
So, how well should we prepare for the peak? And how well have we prepared for the moment that we have on our hands? Mr. Ola Oresanya joins us this morning. He is an environmental consultant. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
As well as the Director General, Nigeria Hydrological Service Agency, Clement Nze. He joins us from our studios in Abuja. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Let me begin with you. Yes, Mr. Nze. In the course of the week, you put out a statement urging strict town planning codes to be enforced and calling for constructions of flood walls, buffer dams, dikes, and other infrastructure. Question I want to first of all ask you is, isn't it too late in the day for us to be talking about preparing for the rains when it's already here?
I should expect so much from him.
The title of Madakin comes with
it's
high
not
expectations,
quite late.
and the celebrant believes that the task.
Some states that have been heeding our warnings already at work months back. I can tell you authoritatively, Jigawa State has been at work based on what happened in 2020. I was here anyway to see things for myself. Jigawa State has been working. They heeded our warnings. They saw what happened in 2020, and they have been at work.
From where it is today,
KB State, which was the worst hit in 2020 flooding, where over 450,000 farmlands where they plant rice were washed away or inundated. KB State has been at work to ensure that there is no repeat of what happened in 2020 to take place in 2021. The National Emergency Management Agency have been doing some remedial works in Abeokuta. There was a heavy destruction in 2018. I was there among the presidential team that went to see things in conjunction with NEMA, National Water Resources Institute in Kaduna, Ogun River Basin, and other relevant agencies. So, work is going on in Abeokuta. I mentioned Abeokuta because it was actually terribly hit in July 2018. Just a 3-hour rainfall that took place there. So, any state that have been listening to us ought to have taken certain steps before this date. And again, I will say that the past of rains we are experiencing is not actually the real onset of a rainy season in some parts of the country. We are yet to enter into it, just as you mentioned in your intro. So there is still time for states, local governments, councils, and even individuals to take actions.
more information,
we have this conversation.
Download the Airtel TV
And
app
every
to watch
year,
all the
the
fun
same
and exciting
things are
performances
said
of The Voice Nigeria Season 3
about
every Saturday and
what
Sunday.
individuals
8 p.m.
can do
The
to
Voice
prevent
Nigeria.
floods. Forget the state governments and how they sell land that is supposed to be on
Welcome back. It's still
water planes and all that. What the individual can do. From your experience as an environmental consultant, does it seem to you like the people are listening to all this? And as the years have gone by, are our habits improving to an extent that will affect the flooding of this year?
And attained high positions.
Well, I think from my experience, it's like I would still put the blame back at the doorstep of government, because when it comes to managing the consequence of these infractions, it still falls back on government. So why don't you prevent in the first instance? Why do we wait until we have disaster and we start spending billions on those who have impacted this disaster? Why don't you spend less of that billion to prevent the disaster? All right. Many people perish for lack of knowledge. For example, farming by the riverbank, you have a dam upstream, and the riverbanks are constrained, and you already have setbacks that are fertile for farming. That's actually the essence, all right, of farming by those riverbanks. They're very fertile, all right. Now, you need to provide agricultural services to these farmers to let them know that whatever kind of cropping you want to put by this riverbank, you must harvest just before time T. So you know the kind of crop you can plant at those areas that you must harvest before the release of dam and the rest of it. So the farmer will hit to that, and that they will run, but many of them don't have this knowledge, and that we rather wait until when we now have the excessive, the intense rainfall, and we're now talking about 100 people died, 10 billion houses got destroyed, and we start voting money.
You're touching on a sore point for me.
Right.
You know, especially when you talk about agriculture, we'll get to that part, because rain has its use, so to speak, in our national lives. But I think what Alero is asking is our attitudes as a people. Over the years, I have seen personally, and I'm pretty sure you may have seen or heard it as well, that people literally dump garbage in the drainages, expecting that the rain will wash it away. Where to? I don't think anyone really asks that question. So I think Alero's question is, have our attitudes as a people and our habits in that terms, has it improved irrespective of all of the conversations that we hear from government agencies such as NISA?
Definitely not. You can't see any significant improvement because the structure on ground is not getting that kind of function. Okay?
When you say the structure on ground, what are you talking about? It's
the policy and the structure of governance that puts you in line to function properly. It's the average human being you don't want to obey the law, but you want to break the line. But because you know if you break the line that somebody's going to arrest you, then you conform. The typical man that will urinate by the roadside here in Nigeria, because you know there's no reprimand for it, I will now say it's his habit. The same man will get to a more organized society, and he will not do that because he knows that immediately you're arrested and there's a reprimand for that. So you conform. So it's a structure. It still tells you something is wrong with the way we structure ourselves. And it's not just about habit, it's a tolerance. Okay, the system tolerates us for not conforming with the normal rules and regulations. So it still falls back on who is managing this social, the social contracts with the people. So it's you that determines how the people will comply.
Oh, okay, Mr. Nze, I don't know if you have a thing or two to say about that, because I'm pretty sure while the warnings go out from your agency to the states, there must have been some recommendations. What are some of the things that you found out from the Jigawa state, the Kebbi state that you mentioned, for instance? What kind of habits made the states vulnerable to the levels of flooding and destruction that followed?
Now, you cannot totally eliminate the destruction that follows flooding, or once flooding takes place. What we strive to achieve is to reduce the level of destruction. Flood is a kind of hazard. But when no appropriate steps are taken to contain that hazard, it transforms to disaster. Now, the states I mentioned, the topography, the geology, some of those places are flat, and the river system. And again, like my friend at the studio mentioned, the inability of government at certain levels to enforce discipline. Like Jigawa, for instance, a lot of structures have been removed. Government has the powers to do that. In Abuja, so many houses were removed in 2020. But then, that's after the damages have been done. So many houses were removed, more than 150 were pulled down, that are within the flood plains or the pathway for the flood. There will always be flood. But if proper actions are taken by relevant authorities or government that have the apparatus, the powers, they take necessary actions, and then individuals too, the destruction will not take place. For instance, in Abeokuta, we discovered that people were building very close to, there's a major river channel, or yes, channel. It could be empty during the dry season. Nature provided it like that. But human interventions, anthropogenic activities of man, we begin to appropriate where nature has provided for itself during rainy season to convert the excess runoff. That gives rise to disaster. That's what has happened in some of these locations. For instance, Kebbi State, the governor, we were in the studio, I think NTA, Good Morning Nigeria. He acknowledged that they heeded the warning given by our agency. That was why, though they lost a lot in terms of agriculture, but human losses were quite minimal. Not minding, they are the first recipient of whatever happens upstream of Niger, of 7 countries upstream of Nigeria, or 6 countries upstream of Nigeria, that once it begins to happen at a certain period of the year, right from Futajalan Highlands in Guinea, going through Mali, Niger, Benin Republic, and then inflows from Burkina Faso and Cote d'Ivoire. Kebbi State is the first casualty. And they fell, so much for it last year. There was nothing much any person could do to reduce it at that point in time.
But, Mr. Nze, how much rain are we expecting this year?
I think this falls categorically within the purview of the relevant agency of government, the Nigeria Meteorological Agency, NIMET. But we work hand in hand. Going by their prediction, they mention that the earliest onset of rains in the coastal part of Nigeria will be 1st of March, plus or minus about 5 days or so. It began to rain in Sapele, February 25th, and it has been more or less continuous. If you add 5 days to 25th of February, it gives you something more than 98% accurate to that prediction of March 1st. On the far north, NIMET mentioned that the earliest onset, starting from Katsina, will be around 9th of June. And then when it comes to cessation dates, it will begin to cease from the far north around October 26, and in the southern part of Nigeria, December 25. Now, given this kind of scenario, there are, in between, there are certain things you cannot, predict at such long range, but weekly, NIMET, or even more than that, hourly keeps giving you information as what to expect in terms of rainfall. Like I mentioned, what I'm just giving you is a kind of a skeleton. NIMET is the best authority to speak on that. But we work in conjunction because rainfall is a major factor that contributes or aggravates flooding in the country, or in fact anywhere.
You have given us enough information. Anyway.
More than enough. More than enough. But Mr. Esaya, again, he has drawn closer to the agricultural bit. But before we go there, and that's one thing that I want to take off with you first before we go back to him. Let me ask you this. You are also special advisor to the governor of Ogun State on environment. And as he has said, there is always the need to do some things, knowing certain things that are sure to happen. The Ogun River Basin, for instance, is something that usually released at least once a year, and it usually is a headache for the people in the environment, especially around us here in Sherry and all of that. So what's the plan? Because a good number of people usually have to leave their houses for weeks. And I don't know, is there an end to that in sight, or is that something that's still certain to happen this year?
Well, when you look at the topography of the Isheri area, which is downstream the Ogun River Basin, it's empty of the tributaries of that feeds into the lagoon, or the Lagos Lagoon. And one of the key things that you look for towards flood management, it's the risk mapping. And I think this area that happens to be within the floodplain is a high-risk zone based on certain things. Now, the tidal surge, is a factor that locks the speed at which you discharge into the lagoon in this area. All right, so no matter what you even do upstream, dredging and wherever, you cannot do anything about the tidal lock. So what do? The next thing is to improve in what we call the dikes around the flood-prone areas, just like the Isheri Oshun, and make sure that lives are preserved, so that by the time you have the tidal lock, you have the inflow and you have the rise in the water level, then you can have embankment that will shield the settlements behind those areas. So looking at the history, the data, for the sequence of the tidal lock, which we already have in Ogun State right now, we can predict precisely, even by the time you have to open up the dam, because it's a natural thing, you cannot hold the water and threaten the integrity of the dam. The dam must be open and the water must flow. And the water must flow through the through the plains, all right, and naturally discharge into the lagoon. So it must come. And we can predict the volume. For example, Ogun State is going to have the highest rainfall around June, and it's going to be like about 420 centimeter in the month of July for Ogun State. And that tells you the volume. And the daily average throughout the year for Ogun State is about 220. So in the month of June, you're going to have almost like 18 days of rainfall intense. And that will affect the flow that is already coming upstream. The dam will have been opened earlier upstream, and the Ogunshu River Basin must open up its dam around July, and the impact will be felt around August, September downstream. So that's a preparation to make sure that everybody within the embankment, you leave the area. Recently, we had advocacy at the Kara market, okay, so that part of the habit of the market is that they dump their refuse inside that water, and that they kind of constrain the flow in that area. Right now, there's an improved waste management services for them to reduce that, and also to train them on how to move away from the riverbanks. So you will have noticed some changes in that area. But the residents around the Sherry area and the rest of it, the solution is to increase, one, the road level, which the government has done. You will have seen that the road level have improved by almost 0.6 centimeter, 0.6 of a meter. The levels of the road have improved, and drainage channel have been constructed so that when you have flows, it will go through the. So these are
very quick one before we take a break.
Right.
Is this in any way suggesting that people need to leave the area permanently?
Well, there are some areas where until you have the dike, you may have to manage the ding-dong of moving off and coming back until we have a dike.
Perhaps the government is, you're going to have to look for a settlement for them. But we'll take on the agricultural bit that I talked about when we return from this break. Please stay with us.
All right.
All right, thanks for staying with us. So, I don't know, you were going to ask first about the refuse before we go into agriculture.
Yes, and I think that Mr. Oresoya here is the apt person to answer this question, because before he went over to Ogun, he was a big man here in Loma. And I was saying to him during the break that when I look at the street sweepers, I feel very, very sorry for them, because I appreciate just how dangerous their job is
and
with the way we drive.
How important as well.
In Nigeria. But instead of spending so much money employing so many road sweepers, why don't we compel our people and train them to stop throwing their refuse all over the place? Singapore was able to ban chewing gum from an entire country. And guess what? No one chews gum in Singapore. Something as personal as that, a government was able to enforce it. Why can't we do something about dumping of refuse in Nigeria? It is embarrassing, and the rainy season brings out the filth of our cities even more.
Well, I'll still reiterate this, all right, that the structure you put in place will determine how you operate, will determine what we define as your habit. You mentioned Singapore, that you don't treat chewing gum. The chewing gum law in Singapore was as a consequence of the nuisance chewing gum was causing the government. That is, all pavement were littered and that was becoming a national embarrassment. A law came, and you were sanctioned. You throw chewing gum, you'll be ready to pay fine. All right? There was a reprimand. There was a time in Nigeria that putting up your seatbelt was seen like a fashion. But when the FRC was serious about it, you know, it's not a habit in Nigeria. It's a habit. Whether the FRC will be there or not, you naturally put on your seatbelt. The same thing. If you know that you're going to pay for your waste, for refuse, whether you throw on the road or you leave it in your house, you will learn to leave it in your house. And for not leaving the refuse in your house, that is, if you have a PSP that gets to your house and we are not seeing refuse in your house, you not just pay for the monthly charge, you pay for the default charge.
There's a lot of, there's a lot you are not saying in what you're saying, Mr. Oresa.
Okay.
Remember, because when you're talking about structures to reduce that our filthiness, if I can use the term, you remember that in the between 83 and 85, the first coming of the Buhari administration as a military man, there was such a thing as war against indiscipline. In this false republic, was it the Lagos state government or the national government that came up with kick against indiscipline? So those structures are there. What is weakening them? Consistency,
not there. We're not consistent in the way we operate those laws. All right, so we have a flip-flop. Or a government comes and says, no, I'm not interested. A government will come institutionalize it. And apart from that, apart from the flip-flop, the inconsistency in policy, there was a time in Lagos, it was almost a taboo to see anybody bringing refugees to the road. Yeah. You can recall, because people will arrest you and you are going to pay for it, like I told you. I mean, you can imagine the street of Mushi in those days. Just not too far away, 6, 7 years ago. You don't see refugees on the road again because people were paying. Even at Mushi, people were compelled to pay. And if you don't pay, you'll be taken to court. All right? So everybody, you know, something will change you. But again, another government came. There was a kind of a swing and said, oh, bring refugees on the road, we'll be picking on the road. Then we went back. More of the refugees, they will lie down on the road unpicked. 3/4 of it will get washed in the drainage, and the road will get damaged, and the rest of it. So if we are consistent with our policy, all right, there are some things we don't toy with. We don't play games with when it comes to environment. Environment should be on an exclusive list that you don't toy with environmental laws. Okay. You rather build on it.
Well, Mr. Nze, let me ask you this. How significant is what we can call our environmental indiscipline to flooding?
To put it direct, we are not disciplined as individuals when it comes to our environment. Even whether as individuals or some corporate bodies. Now, I was going to Badagry on the 7th of February. Right from Festac, or say my 2, on the right-hand side, moving towards Ojo, I was, quite amazed what I saw in terms of refuge. Estate developers, I'm talking about maybe corporate bodies, do not pay heed to the environment. For instance, in Abuja, so many estates are, springing up on daily basis. Houses are being built. Even the houses come up first before the infrastructure, like the road and other services. No steps are taken to make provision for nature. Like what happened in, I think they call it Sunday Adewusi Estate, around day in Abuja in 2020. Vehicles were swept away, carried from one compound to the other. Trademore Estate also in Abuja around Ulube. Now, if there's a proper planning by the estate developers, by those who own those estates, who plan those estates, first and foremost is to provide for nature. It must be there. Somebody in Gwagwalada, in Abuja here, was crying last year that he had lived at a particular spot for about 24 years. Yeah, what we call return interval when it comes to the rains. It might come back in 5 days. The kind of magnitude of rain that we experienced this year might come back in 5 years, 10 years, 100 years. Like the 2012 flood incident in Nigeria, the worst in recent time. People were saying it is a 100-year, it has 100-year return interval. But within 6 years, in 2018, we had something that was worse than that. Only it could have been quite glaring. But in 2018, Cameroon didn't release water from their dam, the Lamdo Dam. If they had released water, 2012 could have been a child's play. So, human beings or individuals, corporate bodies have a lot to do to safeguard our environment. We should be environment friendly in our planning. If you know that if I throw away a plastic container, if I have in mind that this plastic container I'm throwing outside my house cannot atomize, it cannot become disseminated, it must find its way somewhere to cause problem or challenge for another person. I won't throw it. It again, from my own perspective, as an agency, falls back to relevant governments that have apparatus that owe it as a duty to the citizens to implement or enforce the laws, like Mr. Rosa was mentioning there. If I'm certain, if I'm aware that if I breach any rule, the penalty will follow. Who gives the penalty? It's not the individual, it's the government. Issue of breaking the light, throwing things here and if I know if I do it, like you also mentioned there, in 1984 to 85, I was in Lagos then. Even to urinate by the roadside, you did not did it. You never did it that time. To queue up to enter vehicle, we never did it. Why? Government was enforcing the law it made. Such could be done even today to ensure that our environment is safeguarded.
Mr. Nze, let's move to the agric side of all this for a bit. We know that there are challenges right now, insecurity and all that. But let's just imagine that these are normal times. Round about now, when the rains are just starting, what normally are farmers doing?
You know, there have been serious advocacy by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency through what they call agric meteorology. It has gone down to the grassroots to advise farmers. In fact, I think this week the DG of NIMET, Professor Matazu, and some of his staff, they were in Kebbi State, meeting with the stakeholders, farmers that are well organized, what we call maybe Water Users Association, meeting with them to advise them on planting, cropping for 2021. When to plant, when not to plant, with regards to maybe rainfall. It really hit us so much when what happened in 2020, came into being. The flooding. Hundreds of thousands of hectares of land were washed away, where they have agricultural, items. Washed away in Jigawa. I was there. Anambra State suffered greatly. Even Kano State. Is it Bayelsa? These have heightened food insecurity. Now, like you mentioned, or like we know it, the more that the farmers could do, even in the midst of security threats, that are no longer able to go to the places they need to go to farm, the little that they are able to put in place are again being threatened. But I'm aware the step that we are taken by government, the CBN, and other sectors of government, insurance companies, to cushion the effect of damages that we have done to crops in 2020, giving loans to assistance to farmers to go back. And again, nature has another way of compensating itself. When there was heavy flooding, for instance, in Kebbi State, because they were crying that they may not have, again, 3 farming seasons. But the excess flood that came in from Niger Republic kept the soil wet beyond the time that they were able to go back and still maintain the normal number of cropping seasons they have in a year. So by and large, flooding that took place in 2020 affected food security in the country. In addition to that one, we're already suffering from the security threats that farmers can no longer go as far as they ought to go to do their farming.
Yeah, Mr. Resanya, virtually every state in Nigeria is agrarian. And we knew the rains would come. And Ogun State is no less. So speak to us both as an environmental consultant that you are, and as someone who has to interface with government giving counsel. What should state governments, like the ones that he has mentioned, Mr. Angze has mentioned, what should state governments be doing now? What should the farmers themselves be doing so that we are not at risk of food insecurity?
Well, thank you. If you listen carefully well to Mr. Angze, you can see that for us in this country, it's not for lack of knowledge. It is the application of the knowledge that we have. Most of this knowledge, they are right there in silos, everywhere. We're not able to apply, we're not able to aggregate and dissipate this thing to farmers that requires them. The average farmer does not have access to all this information, both meteorological, hydrological. It does not. He saw a fertile land by the riverbank and he wanted to farm on it. And it's easy. He is not aware when we are going to have the intense rain, when we're going to have the flash flooding, when we're going to have the discharge. Most of these things are predictable. All right, the flood pattern, the behavior pattern of rainfall, they're all predictable. The knowledge is right there. So we need extension service officers that every government, if we're really serious about agriculture, we need to train the extension service. The extension service officers, they are there to acquire this knowledge, train them, and support farmers to be able to use this knowledge properly. That's the kind of farming you can do by the riverbank. You know when not to farm, you know when to harvest. So the extension officers will warn you, don't plant a seed or don't do farming that will take 9 months. By the riverside, just a kind of farming that will take you 3 months, harvest before the discharge. We already know when we're going to have intense rainfall. We already know when we're going to have flooding by that side. So you must have done your harvest. When to come back, he will tell you that. All right? And this is key. It's missing. And that is why we keep having this problem of destruction of agricultural produce. Somebody will have invested so much and the flood will come out with this. I see we cannot predict it.
Well, it is clear now that both the CBN, the Bank of Agriculture, and all of them need your service at this time to make sure that farmers get this information. Because, for instance, I'm just learning for the first time that, farmers need to understand the calendar of rain, so to speak.
Exactly.
We have to thank you very much for being here this morning. Mr. Ola Resanya is an environmental consultant as well, a special advisor to the governor of Ogun State on the environment. Thank you for your time. We've also had the honor of the presence of Mr. Clement Nze, who is Director General, Nigeria Hydrological Service Agency. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and thoughts. The Sunrise continues in a moment. Do stay with us.
Welcome back, everybody, and thank you for staying with us. Now we're going to be talking women.
Yes. I'm just going to have to keep quiet.
I was jealous at the beginning of the program.
No, it's just championing your cause.
Women achievers. It's women again. Don't forget, this is the month of the women. We had International Women's Day, and we also had Mother's Day, even though some say it's the fake Mother's Day.
I'm even wondering how... You had International Women's Day. You don't even drink water on top. Okay, I withdraw my comment.
Did I not say he was jealous? Right. So in commemoration of the International Women's Day, the alumni associations under the USGEAA, which stands for United States Government Exchanges Alumni Association, they nominated some female members as Women Achievers for the year 2021, based on their impressive social enterprises, which represent the ideals and vision of the according to Ayo, the vision of the USGR for social transformation.
You didn't hear it from me. When you see her later, you didn't hear it from me, you hear it from her.
Well, we have some of these nominees with us this morning, and it's my pleasure to welcome the Secretary General of USGR. I apologize. The Secretary General of USGEAA, Tinola, I know.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Being here. Good morning.
We also have Rhoda Robinson, who is International Visitors Leadership of the International Visitors Leadership Program. Good morning. Thank you. And joining us virtually.
She'll join us later.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm really curious, Alera, to find out what the USGEAA is about. So let me ask you, Tinola, because I mean, Exchanges Alumni Association, what does it mean?
Okay, the United States Government Exchanges Alumni Association is an umbrella of alumni associations, 20 exchange programs, and members of these associations have been privileged to go to the USA for a professional training sponsored by the United States government. And this training is between 2 weeks to 10 months. And upon return to Nigeria, they become members of the various alumni associations, and they also implement social transformational programs.
You said various.
Yes, we Nigerians participate in 20 exchange programs, and they constitute Young Africa Leadership Initiative, Mandela Washington Fellowship, the International Virtual Leadership Program, the Teaching Excellence, we have Fulbright Scholars, we have Tech Women, Fortune 500, we have Herbert Humphrey Fellowship, amongst others.
Now, what about the International Visitors Leadership?
Yes, it's one of the programs.
That's one of the programs as well.
I mentioned that.
Okay, so Rhoda Robinson. Yes. Tell us about the International Visitors Leadership Program.
Okay, so the International Visitors Leadership Program, that's the IVLP, is one of the older exchange programs of the U.S. government in Nigeria here. And it's an opportunity for individuals who are implementing different change initiatives in Nigeria to visit the U.S. for about 3 weeks and have a tour of different initiatives, government programs, or other programs running in, and learn from those programs and learn from different professionals in those areas on how best to improve upon their own work back in Nigeria.
How long were you there for?
So I was there for 3 weeks in 2014.
That's a long time ago.
Yes, it was.
You've been an alumni forever, or an alumna?
Almost forever. Yeah, so it was a very important part of my development as a person. And I was able to visit 4 states from the east to the west coast. Oh, no, yeah, from the east to the west coast. And I had the opportunity to meet with different representatives of both the government and social enterprises and non-governmental organizations in the U.S. working on health issues. So the IVLP has different tracks. So I went on the health track. There are others who go on film. Others.
Are you a health worker?
So I'm a project coordinator, developer. I'm a social change maker. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me go to Doris, and I'll come back to you, and so you can tell us exactly what you learned over there.
Okay.
How it's impacting on what you're doing in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. You know, the effect of all that on our society.
Okay.
Good morning, Dr. Doris Gemma Onyado.
Good morning.
And thank you for joining us. You're joining us virtually, and you're a fellow, Mandela Washington Fellow.
Yes, I am.
But we can't see you.
Hello.
No,
yes.
Hello.
Both physically and spiritually. But
there you are. Right. Okay. Now, what is it being a Mandela Washington Fellow?
Wow, being a Mandela Washington Fellow has really offered me a lot of opportunity to interact with people from different caliber. It was really an interesting part of my life and journey as an entrepreneur. In 2017, I was selected among 1,000 young African to the United States on an exchange program, fully sponsored by the United States. In that program, we had like 4 tracks. I was under the business and entrepreneurship track. There is the civil track. There is those working in the public service track. And being in that fellowship gave me the opportunity to see young Africans doing amazing work in their countries and looking for different ways to make our nation a better, our continent a better place.
One of the questions, of course, you still answer Alara's question, Rhonda, but let me stay with Dr. Onyado for a bit. One of the questions some might be asking is, what would you say is the reason, from what you have found out, from what you have read, is the reason for the U.S. government being interested in this, and how, what was the plan, in your opinion, to spread that influence you are gaining on the people under your influence?
Okay, I think for the U.S. Government, they wanted us to develop a kind of leadership skill and mentality, and to actually find ways to impact in our communities, irrespective of where we are. So typically, the program is meant for us to go out there, get enough of knowledge to be able to come down here and implement it. And I know they were choosing people who were doing little things in their corners, you know, because they wanted it to have a ripple effect in our society. For the program, there is no way you go for the program and you're left to remain in the United States. No, you're not left to remain in the United States. You're asked to return back to Nigeria or your country and actually find a way to start implementing what you have learned, start imparting in the society, start sharing your knowledge so that it could have a ripple effect.
Well, that's the question that goes straight to Rhoda.
Exactly, because I saw that she was even excited about it.
Okay, so I think I'll give a background. Okay, so in 2007, I founded an organization with some colleagues of mine called Hasty Health Initiative. And through this organization, we've been working on different health and empowerment issues as well as rights issues. Then in 2012, I was opportune to be selected as a Carrington Youth Fellowship Initiative, fellow, basically. So that 1 year gave me an opportunity to further see how best, and that program is also run by the US government in Nigeria. It gave me the opportunity to see how best or how more I could scale up my impact. And I had started working on different ideas and initiatives and also managed my relationship with the US government in Nigeria during that period. So between 2012 and 2014, I had worked with a lot of young people, other organizations, to implement health programs in Lagos State, empowerment programs and school initiatives that were targeted at empowering young girls. And then my interest in sexual and reproductive health and maternal health had already grown at that period. And because of that relationship, I was also selected for the International Resources Leadership Program because it was an opportunity for me to learn how things are being done in the US.
Just put a comma there.
Okay.
So this means that your relationship with the US government did not begin with this leadership program.
It did not begin with this leadership program. It began with another leadership program within the US.
Which had happened a few years before
exactly,
this one?
Yes.
Okay,
then this one was
ahead.
the one that took me out of Nigeria.
Okay.
Yes.
The other one you were working with them here?
Yes, I was working here in Nigeria for a year.
Okay.
And then the IVLP took me out of Nigeria for 3 weeks, where I visited 4 states from New York to Cleveland and then down to San Francisco, meeting with different federal and state health institutions and colleges and organizations working on different health programs, and then learning from them how they develop their systems, how they develop their structures, how they identify problems.
Chinola, the challenge there for me is you get all this knowledge from what Rhonda has said, from what Dr. Doris Gemma Onyado has said, is how you are able to replicate and sustain the systems that you create as a result of these trainings.
Okay. The United States, the USGA, as mentioned, is an umbrella of 20 exchange programs within Nigeria. And what we do as a body is to coordinate all the alumni associations, and each alumni association is implementing various projects, in transforming communities. And as an alumni body as a whole, we implement projects as well. 2 years ago, we had a mentoring program which impacted over 2,000 secondary school students in Lagos State. We also coordinate trainings, both online and virtually, grant writings rather, and then sometime last year in November, we implemented a waste well training in collaboration with the United States Consulate and the Solo Local Council Development Area. And then this training, over 140 school leavers, secondary school leavers, were trained on how to recycle waste, that's this unused disposed materials.
So there's some collaboration with some government, some elements of government.
Yes, basically the USGA works hand in hand with the United States Consulate. By virtue of our name, we have a written mandate from the United States.
You mentioned the fact that you work with a local government.
No, for that particular project, we had to collaborate with the Solo Local Council Development Area.
We'll step up on that when we return from a short break we need to take now. Please stay with us. Yes, so you were saying something. Thanks for saying us, by the way. You were saying something about, the collaborations that you usually, as I said, since you are the clearinghouse for all these programs, I'm wondering the kind of feedback you have gotten from the various programs, especially when it comes to implementing some of those things or domesticating some of their learnings, from the U.S., of course, Rhonda Johnson, for instance, who spent 3 weeks abroad, and Dr. Onyado, who also has benefited, so to speak. So I'm just wondering, what kind of feedback do you get about whatever challenges or whatever successes they have recorded in replicating their learnings domestically?
Okay, let me use this recent project we implemented as an example. Over 15 participants have reached out to us. Some of them want to commence recycling of bottles. They want to go into that business. And some of them are already using materials in creating flip-flops and purses, of which there's a particular lady who I'm following up with. She's already generating funds over the yellow tide. She generated a lot of funds as she's just a teenager. And based on the very good feedback we received, it's already this program. The plan is in the pipeline. Actually, we intend replicating this project in 5 different local government areas within Lagos State. So these are some of the positive feedback we receive, and when we do a post-project evaluation, we then look at how to expand our frontiers and if this program can be replicated in other areas and what will be the benefits.
Have you had cause to express dissatisfaction over any one of the programs?
No, not at all.
You've been pleased with all of them?
Yes, because before
actually, I was thinking about hers.
Let me ask Dr. Onyado, the same thing, please. I don't know about the displeasure part yet, but you may want to speak to it if you feel so moved. But let me ask you the same question that I asked her. In terms of replicating your learning back at home, doing the things that are expected of you from the Mandela Washington Fellowship. What's been your experience?
Okay, prior to me going to the United States for the Mandela Washington Fellowship, actually I'm an optometrist by profession. and a social entrepreneur. I've been working in the eye care space over a period of time, and I wasn't only relying on having people walk into my clinic to consult me. I took eye care to the communities. I was reaching out to different communities, but going for the Mandela Washington Fellowship gave me an opportunity to expand my project. I was actually running the Milder Gift of Sight. This is actually offering free eye care services to people living in rural communities, the vulnerable population, the old people's home. But when I got back from the Mandela Washington Fellowship, I was able to expand my project. I had the Sight to School project, which targets children between the ages of 5 to 15, you know, giving them an access to eye care prior to them going into school, because we just believe that there is a big lag between what you see and what you learn. So with my stay in the United States, it gave me an opportunity to make my project more sustainable. More sustainable in the sense that I have been able to build products that I can sell to around the eye care space I sell, to be able to fund those projects and eye care. In that way, I'm trying to bridge the gap between affordable and access to affordable eye care, and also giving people who have no right to getting eye care the opportunity to have free eye care services and treatment interventions. And I feel from the time I went for the Mandela Washington Fellowship till date, I've been able to reach out to a whole lot of people. My presence is in many communities, more than 15 communities presently, and I'm still working on that. And I think my impact has actually made me to expand my healthcare into other aspects, like trying to empower women, especially those living with visual disabilities. So I think
we'll come to the women empowerment part in a bit. It excites me as well. But let me ask you the same question, Rhonda, because I saw that you are really, you're wondering, okay, this systems thing, right? You create a system based from your experience, the things that you have seen in those 4 cities that you went to in the United States of America, replicating them at home. In fact, maybe I should ask you, when you were seeing them in the US, your mind must have been flying home. And?
It's when I can do this as well. So I have a platform. My organization is called HACI Health Initiative. So on returning back to Nigeria, I knew what I needed to do. I think I took 2 things from that trip. One, the need to give back to society, and the need to not just focus at the ground level, but looking at policy change, looking at systems change, not just working with communities, but working with gatekeepers of those communities, working with the governments, the custodians of those communities. And over the last, it's been 6-7 years now, I have, through my organization, HACI, we've developed programs. We started with running mentorship programs in different schools. We have a safe space, and we train other young people to create safe spaces for girls in their communities and support girls to actually be more and do more. Currently, with support from the United Nations Trust Fund to End Violence Against Women, we are working with 3 state governments in southwest Nigeria to look at policies and develop better policies and better implementation plans for ending female genital mutilations within the state. Some people might say there is no real correlation, but when you've seen something that works, it helps you think better on how do you solve an existing problem. How do you define the pathways that would lead to your current challenges to the impact you want to see?
Wanting to do them is one thing.
Yes.
Having a system to start is another thing.
And the wherewithal.
The capacity to sustain, that's another thing altogether.
Yes, and a lot of people think once you just get one training or one opportunity, that's all you need. No. So from there, I have been consistently developing myself and my organization to make sure that opportunities that arise, partnerships that would make your impact greater or bigger, are created so that you don't just work in a silo. You're actually able to affect change, not just where you are, but in different areas in where the country you are. Hasty started working in 2 states, Kwara State and Lagos State. Now we're in 15 states. We cover the entire southwest Nigeria, running programs on maternal health, on female genital mutilation, on sexual and reproductive health, on empowerment, on water, sanitation, and hygiene. So it depends on how you take that opportunity and you use the platform that you have to create better change. And I think that's one of the most important things to take out, or that I took out of that experience.
How would you assess your impact on all these fronts that you have mentioned?
I think one of the ways I access it is if those I have worked with are able to replicate that same kind of mentality or have keyed into that vision and are working towards it. Let me give you an instance. A couple of years ago, we started working, when we started expanding, what we had done then was to go to these states ourselves and see how we can effect that change or implement those interventions. But working with locally led organizations makes it easier for you to, one, take the knowledge that you have over the years from your different experience and share that with another organization. Most of the time we work with young organizations and youth-led programs, and share that knowledge, share that experience, share that connection with that institute, that organization or that person, so that they can actually make that change within their local area as well. So that's one of the things I can say, okay, we have done this. And I had also mentioned about training young people to create safe spaces. Now, there's this thought that a safe space can only be a physical space. But our own thinking is that if you have the knowledge required to create that safe space, you can make any space a safe space.
No matter how small.
No matter how small. It doesn't have to be within the 4 walls.
Hello, permit me to expand this conversation a little bit. And let me start with you, Tinola. Clearly, rather, let me assume that this program, this exchanges programs, would first of all have to affect, or rather, necessitate an evolution in the individuals themselves.
Yes.
Before it is taken further.
Yeah.
Let's take the leadership program, for instance.
Okay.
You can't be a leader to other people
Okay.
if you're not able to lead yourself.
That's very
assumably.
Yes.
So what kind of impact have you seen in the lives of the beneficiaries? What transitory process have you seen in terms of feedback now from the individuals who are the primary beneficiaries before even taking it beyond, to impact their environments?
Okay. Every single alumni member who has passed through the exchange program have always given positive feedback on how the training transformed their lives, and it was sort of like a platform to launch into the world. Take, for instance, I'm an alumni of the Young African Leaders Initiative, and I was trained in Ghana. That's where I was secretary assist. And before then, I was involved in developmental projects. And then going through that training, it gave me a better view of what exactly leadership is all about. And actually, that's where my leadership journey started. And then I became involved in alumni activities. I started, it expanded my network. And then I began to see more leadership potentials in myself. And then I became a better person. And then I also met with other people who share the same interest, and then we collaborated, and then we implemented projects, and then based on the leadership aspects, along the line, I started being involved in other alumni associations, and then I saw myself taking up leadership roles, not only in the U.S. exchange programs, or alumni associations, and other fellowships as well. So using myself as an example, the yearly training I went through, excuse me, it transformed me to a better person and a better leader.
Does the capacity or otherwise to evolve, is it a measure of selection for beneficiaries of the program? Is this something that's okay? In other words, does the person have to be amenable to be a beneficiary of the program, or is just about anybody?
Okay, so the exchange program as a whole, you have to apply. Like I mentioned, there are over 20 exchange programs you have to apply, but you have to be someone who is sort of like a social entrepreneur, and you've been impacting your community, because that's what the U.S. government wants to see. They want to see people who have been there impacting their communities, you know, locally, and then when they see that potential and they know if they train this person will be able to replicate and you know, impact more communities. So what happens is that you apply to the exchange. The website is www.exchanges.state.gov. That's where publication is made on various alumni calls for application, and then when you apply for that program, they would review the application, and those who are able to scale through, they would reach out to them, they go for an interview process, and then the finalists will then be, you know, brought on board. They will go through the professional training, and if they're successful, they become alumni, members of the alumni associations, and they're able to implement projects in their various communities.
Interesting. You will have your say, but we need to take a short break. As my producer said, to drink some water. We'll be right back. Okay, so we're back in the conversation. So let me ask you, Rhonda, same question perhaps, about how it has to first of all transform you before you can transform anyone. She's shared her experience. What is your own before and after story? I can put it that way.
Okay, so my before story is I've always been passionate about change. My organization started while I was still in school in 2007. So I always knew... What school? University of Ilorin. Yeah.
When I was in school.
I don't know. So I read human physiology. So I always knew I had a passion for health. I always knew I wanted to do something. And I knew I should be able to do something. So I was already on that trajectory when from 2007 to 2012, doing little things everywhere I could, working with anybody who was interested in also making change. So by the time I got in contact with the U.S. government, I would say I already had the potential to, and the zeal to actually want to effect change. So as Tino had already said, it's different programs have different processes. A lot of them have to do with application. But for the IVLP, you are sort of selected. There is no application process for it. So it's based on the potential that you show, that you are given the opportunity to actually see how you can make yourself better.
Virtue of what you have been doing.
Exactly. So you have to have something. So it's not just anybody.
You are literally challenging someone who is thinking about, should I be doing something, to actually get up and do something.
If you are thinking it, you should do it. I like just do it, basically. And then if you see something, change it if you can.
Nantinola, how would you assess the impact that the various initiatives are having on the community? What kind of feedbacks do you have from the community?
Individually and cumulatively.
And collectively.
Okay, let me use an instance of the IVLP. In the past 3 months, they've been implementing various programs. They're currently implementing a mentoring program for students in secondary schools, informing them about career and peer pressure and so many other vital topics. And this is the feedback received from these students is very tremendous. The reports received from the secretary of the IVLP is very tremendous. Same with other alumni associations as well. They have all been implementing various programs.
Dr. Yado, from your own experience and perhaps neck of the woods, if I can use that term, and talking about impact, what kind of responses are you getting as far as impact, direct impact is concerned, and how does that encourage or discourage you to want to go on or not?
Okay, if you had me earlier, I said I work in the eye care space, and I believe when you give someone vision, the impact is instant in the sense that a child who can't see the blackboard and you fit a child with a pair of glasses, this child could see, whoa, I see well now. You've made the impact. For us, our impact is actually felt immediately because we tend to look at people who really, really need to use their vision to see. So I would say that we've had a lot of people who've actually changed their life. We've even given them a new lease in life because of good vision. So our impact, the impact we are making is actually felt instantly. Is impact that you're seeing it as you're doing it, and that is the only thing that gives you joy. As you're seeing it, you're seeing that people are benefiting from what you're doing. So for me, I believe and I see that impact of whatever we are doing is felt instantly. When it comes to vision, it's just like I close my eyes and I open it. There is a whole difference from that.
And from that, I may also want to ask you, you will definitely be challenged to want to scale it up, so to speak. You want to do a lot more than you are able to do now. What's the thinking? What's the plan? What's the vision?
Okay, the vision was to actually replicate what I'm doing in different states. Actually, 2020, we've already set out our plan. That was last year. We wanted to call it the Eye Care Connect. We wanted to connect every state, from one state to the other. But because of the COVID-19 and also the insecurity in the country, we weren't able to do it because I was supposed to implement that project on universal eye care because that gave me an opportunity to win an innovation challenge from the WHO Africa. So we were supposed to roll out the innovation in 2020. But because of the COVID-19 and a lot of insecurity in the country, we had to pause on that project. But the idea which we are working on is to start within places that are safe and replicate what we are doing in places that are safe that we can actually go to without having a security issue. But I know that with what is ongoing now, we are trying to find other ways to be able to have people, make people have access to eye care without having issues. That is why now we are focusing more on people living with the visual disability, those that already know we cannot help them with their vision, but we can actually reinstate them into life to have something to do so that they don't keep depending on people, to have their work done.
Two quick questions, one to you, but to you, Tinola, very, very quickly. How do you manage perception? Because once anyone hears U.S. government, it's dollars.
yes, that's
so
very true.
How do you manage perception in the selection process?
Selection process?
As in the people who benefit from the program. How do you manage perception of the people? How do you manage their expectations based on their perception?
Okay, so what we let them know is that we let them know what the structure is about, how we are affiliated to the United States Consulate, but how we are benefits of the training programs, managed by the United States government. So what we let them know is that as philanthropists, as social entrepreneurs, we're trying to give back to the society through corporate social responsibility. Very true. And this project would actually impact their lives. Yes, that's...
Okay. So, to you, Rhonda Johnson, you would also want to, you're already in 15 states, Governor General already. So, I would just want to find out very, very quickly from you, in terms of vision, because the challenge here is communicating your intentions to people who may or may not have the kind of knowledge, the kind of exposure that you have. What's the reception like? The challenges you have, what's the plan to take it further? Okay,
so the perception is that, as you said, when you hear U.S. government, all you see is dollars. But the truth is that when you find people who have the same kind of passion that you do. It really doesn't come into the discussion. I'll give you an example. Haiti runs an essay competition every year for International Day of the Girl Child. And over the last 4 years, we've been able to select teenage girls who had a vision of what they wanted to see Nigeria to look like. And we've been able to group them together and work with them to actually actualize their dream.
Okay.
So they are the future that we want to see. Basically, I want to see a whole army of young people who have the same vision for change, and then going out there with the right amount of reality to actually change what needs to be changed in our society.
Well done, ladies. You have your work cut out, and we do wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Dr. Doris Gemma Onyado, who joined us virtually, she's a Mandela Washington Fellow. We have Rhoda Robinson, International Visitors Leadership Program, and Tinola Aino, who is Secretary General of USGEAA. Thank you all very much for coming, and we do wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Sunrise will return with the home stretch in just a moment. Don't go away. That scene right there.
I can't even. Let me not go there. But the actress you saw there is okay. Well, you say it's a she. Well, it's a she. Okay. But we have so many. Okay, let me not go there. Omobolanle Salisu joins us this morning on Sunrise in the home stretch we talked about. She's our artist of the week. Thanks for joining us this morning, Omobolanle Salisu.
Jenny, yeah.
Well, sometimes yeah, we can hear you. Sometimes I just wonder how you actors and actresses perceive yourselves when you see yourselves on air, threatening people's lives like that. When you see that, when you see yourself doing that, first of all, what comes to your own mind?
Sorry, come again, please.
I said, when you see yourself in the movies doing what you just saw you doing, threatening people and picking up those roles, what comes to your mind?
Oh, well, it's my job, so I have to do it with everything, you know. I feel good, and, you know, sometimes when I watch myself, I'm like, oh, is this really me? But it's one of those things. You have to interpret your script very well.
Do you get that question at home as well? That, wait a minute, is this the same you, or are you pretending to be who you're not?
Oh, well, acting is pretense. I'll say that.
Okay.
Pretending to be what you're not. You're pretending to be someone else, something else.
Do your children get upset sometimes when they see you acting some roles?
That's acting. You said?
Do they get upset with you sometimes when they see you acting some roles? Maybe roles that they don't particularly like. So you're a bad person. So Mommy, how can you be doing that to someone?
Oh, well, I think they understand what I do. They understand what I do. So it's just like, you know, interpreting someone to be something else, to be someone else. So it's not really. It's just about people to learn from what I do. It's not exactly who I am, you know.
Okay. You studied sociology at the Olabisi Onabanjo University. So how did you get into acting?
Oh, well, it's something I've loved to do a very long time ago, before I entered into university. So along the line, I met someone, a friend. So he actually introduced me to the industry. You know, something I like, and I told him I would like to be doing this. So he said, no problem, and that was how I started.
Well, sometimes, of course, getting into the industry is not so easy for some other people. there are a lot of perceptions about, okay, what you have to do as a man or as a woman before you get into acting. Did you have any such fears, or did you have any such experience?
Well, I don't have any experience like that. I told my friend about it and he introduced me to it just like that, and that's it.
That's a miracle right there, some would say. But since you got into the industry, how significantly would you say it has affected your own life as a person?
Oh wow, it's a good thing to be known. You know, you don't have that fulfilled feelings like, oh, I want to be known and I want people to know I can do this. And now people are seeing it and they know me, or like some people knows me.
Okay.
So it's been, oh goodness.
Okay, go on, we can hear you. Go on. Hello? Oh dear, I think that the line went off there. You know,
Bolanle, are you there?
I think she.
Oh dear.
Well,
bad connection.
Let's take a short, a very, very quick break. We'll be back. Hopefully, we'll have her back by then. All right, thanks for staying with us. So, Omobolanle Salisu is still with us, born in Lagos State and studied sociology at the Olabisi Onabanjo University and started acting in the year between 2003 and 2004. So, well, it's been quite a number of years now, almost 10 years, one would say. So, within those years, what kinds of almost 20 years. I'm sorry. So, what kind of influence would you say you have been able to impact on people who know you or who didn't know you before you became famous?
I would say I'm famous because I'm still who I am, and it's been a very rough road, sincerely, you know. This job really, it demands a lot. And there are some things you need to just, if you really want to be yourself, like I've been myself, and there are some things I would not want to do just because I want to be known or staying on the screen. There are a lot of things I would not do. So there are a lot of shortcuts now. I won't lie to you about that. So that's why it's taking this long. So to gather your own money to produce a movie is not something that's very easy, you know. Well, I'll say I am still who I am. Nothing different, nothing. It's just there. Just me.
Are you telling us that you've also gone into production?
You said?
So are you telling us that you have also gone into production?
Yeah, the clip you showed now is actually my movie production. I produced it last year and it came out this year. Even is the title.
Okay. Do you only act in Yoruba movies?
Presently, yes.
Are there hopes or aspirations of branching out into multilingual productions?
Yes. I so wish.
Okay, one can only hope that anytime soon the invitations would come. Let me ask you this in closing. How difficult is it to engage you, say, and a producer or director wants to engage you in a movie? How difficult or easy is it?
Personally, it's not difficult. To me, it's not. You want me to feature in your movie, I need your scripts, and that's it. And we talk.
We talk money, right?
We talk money, yeah. That's it.
Well, as you said, personally, for you, it's that easy. I don't know if your management company would say the same. But we have to thank you very much this morning for being a part of our conversation. Omobolanle Salisu is an actress, and she's been a movie producer as well. Thank you so much for being a part of this program this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Okay.
And Omobolanle Salisu brings to a close sunrise.
Just in case, but just a moment, just in case you're looking for an actress who is motherly, I have one that I can introduce to you. I'm her manager. And just for Omobolanle, I don't know her manager, but this particular person, you can contact me for the management, and that's an advertisement right there. So, well, you were saying something.
My partner has gone ballistic again. I think that is normal these days. Oh, by the way, people, he hasn't taken his COVID vaccine yet.
Yes.
I took mine 2 weeks ago, and like I said, I didn't turn into a goat on that day, and I'm still very much here, alive, kicking.
Please make it better.
And
you didn't turn into a goat at all.
I still haven't turned into a goat.
And you won't.
I'm here. If that's any encouragement, Ayobamidele Makinde, please go and take your shot.
Yes, ma'am. But don't forget that this appeal is being made to millions of
others. I'm here. I didn't turn into a goat. I haven't turned into a goat yet, and I'm not likely to turn into a goat because I think Joe Biden took his long before I took mine, and he still was able to give a press conference yesterday. So go out there, and while you're at it, don't forget, taking the jab doesn't mean you jettison all those protocols that we were told about. You still need to wash your hands and use sanitizer and wear your mask and keep a safe distance. Those are still very important, whether you have taken the vaccine or not. So that sunrise for today will bring you a fresh edition. I mean, my mad partner and myself will bring you a fresh edition next week. I'm Alero Edu, wishing you all the best.
You also know very well that there are those they call mad scientists. Those are the intelligent ones. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend.